Yeah, I like Call of Duty, but why does saying it out loud feel so shameful? There was a time in my life where I went down these online water slides with glee, but for some reason, the further I moved away from the noob tubes, my last impression of Call of Duty was not good, with most of my eye being towards the juvenile clientele, who spouted more slurs than a white rapper convention. And after playing the Conduit in my last video 6 months ago and questioned why you would play Call of Duty over, well, every other shooter that's ever come out, I thought it would be interesting to play every mainline campaign in this series and then shout at you for the next few hours. Why? I don't know. It'll be a laugh. In it. Call of Duty. And usually I would pad out this opening sentence with the usual tossery, but learning about the team that brought you this game is a journey on its own. And while we know Infinity Ward as the main developers of COD now, before this point, their origin story was modest to say the least. Hell, they weren't even called that at this point. No, they were called 2015 Incorporated, and I guess branding wasn't their strongest suit. Anyway, the core team at 2015, who were former members of the Quake modding community, started shopping their wares, and quickly landed a gig with Activision, who tasked them to make an expansion pack for Sin by Ritual Entertainment. I would expand, but after a couple of hours of play, I can safely say that this game is not for me. And that's coming from a boomer shooter slut. Meanwhile, in Hell, also known as Electronic Arts, one of its greasy tentacles in an ill-fitting suit, were looking for a new developer to make a next-gen title in the Medal of Honor series, after the previous team, DreamWorks Interactive, owned by film director Steven Spielberg, shat an entire T-Rex after their last game, Trespasser, completely flopped. Yeah, you know that one, the one where you look down to see your health bar and it's on the pro tag's tits? Yeah, you can kinda guess why it didn't catch on. Anyway, after EA was turned down by id Software to make this new Medal of Honor a reality, and learning that nugget blew my balls off, DreamWorks were pointed towards the lads at 2015, who then 2 years later brought out Medal of Honor Allied Assault. And if you know a thing or two about World War II shooters, this is apparently the gold standard. And playing it now, yeah, I agree. It's got that Spielbergian gravitas with that Medal of Honor swashbuckling tone, which feels incredibly nostalgic, especially if you played the PS1 games, which I did to death. And while it plays and looks quite dated now, for its time, MOHAA was influential. And I know this video is about Call of Duty, but the success of Allied Assault cannot be understated, and this is where our old mates Activision make an offer to the members of 2015 to break off from them and form a new studio to basically make Medal of Honor with all the watermarks sanded off. Now that you've had your history lesson, the story of Call of Duty is essentially what all World War II shooters were doing at the time. A little cutscene filled with archival footage, or a note putting you in the frame of mind of your character, and then you're unceremoniously thrown into the fire. Yeah, it's a tad dry and a million miles away from where the series would go, but this at the time was just enough to wet your beak. And besides, from this point onward, you'll be doing one thing and one thing only: killing Nazis. And hang on, we are 10 seconds in and already I spotted a character voiced by Steve Blum. Yes. Actually, this opening drill highlights the first gameplay departure, aiming down the sights of your weapon. Sure, this is nothing new now, but this was a big deal at the time. And yeah, in most games you could zoom in on targets, which always felt like you're squinting at them, but this slight change of staring down the actual barrel of your weapon felt real in the loosest definition of that word. And as we drop in to the opening mission, this is a perfect example of how Call of Duty plays. Basically, it's Medal of Honor, but with a wider, more cinematic scope. And I know that's a tawdry view, but after playing Allied Assault, I cannot unsee how much MOH DNA is in this one. And just like aiming down the sights, I love how COD 1 just puts you in there. You are not a named badass, born and groomed to be the bestest fascist killer ever. You are a regular Joe, with a thirst for hot lead. And our boy is hungry. And this feeling is enhanced by your AI controlled buddies, who get in your way and call out various hazards. Yes, this system is quite rigid here and will vastly improve in later games, but these elements add to the quote immersion. Now, I'm not going to bang this drum constantly, but what makes Call of Duty captivating to me is this illusion of being a small cog in a larger war machine. Yes, killing Nazis is cathartic and always morally correct, but something that really caught me with Medal of Honor and early COD was this almost romantic view of war, which is of course in contrast to the harsh reality of people being put through the meat grinder for crooked ideologies. And yes, this is a fantasy and it's not here to commentate on the actual conflict, but away from the obvious, I know what I'm about to say is brutal, this does come off as a tad shallow. Even with the Spielbergian bent, it doesn't share the same brutality that his films depict. Sadly, I can't show you this due to YouTube's iffy content policing, but going back and playing these games now, this sanitized presentation, while consistent, felt a bit toothless. However, there are some cracks in this veneer, such as the Russian part of the campaign, that thrusts you into the Battle of Stalingrad, where your fellow comrades are stuffed onto a boat like communist cattle, and if you look around you can see how shit scared they are. Granted, they do look a bit penisy, but that's early 2000s graphics for you, and flat-faced as they are, it does add a bit of drama to the proceedings. Well, for me anyway. And what further adds to this is having a health bar. I know that sounds silly saying it out loud now, because we're in a new wave of shooters with retro mechanics, but when you're holding off an entire SS battalion with a health bar the size of Adolf's knob, it leads to some of the thickest tension-filled moments in games I've ever experienced. But this seemingly paltry mechanic adds a lot to the overall action. And that's COD 1 in a nutshell. Yes, it's a game that was hammered into existence to fill a certain niche, but like most opening salvos, it was a necessary step forward, just as the tides were beginning to turn on this genre, because even by 2003, there was a ton of them. But Infinity Ward managed to kick off a second front, and it doesn't take a genius to know where COD would go next. Off the heels of the original, Call of Duty 2 is arguably the one that defines the entire series. Not only was it another release on the PC, it was also the first mainline Call of Duty to make it over to consoles, as this was the launch title for the Xbox 360, and if you are a certain vintage, this might have been the first COD you ever played. Well, not online, because the servers for the first few months were completely balked, in a tradition that Call of Duty will continue to this very day. And while we reminisce in that haze, you might be rudely awakened by the memories of its punishing difficulty, especially if you are playing it on Veteran, which was at the time the highest skill level, and the reason why was due to the 360's achievement system that forced you to play it on this mode to get all the bleep bloop points, which I did back in the day, and it was incredibly thrilling and frustrating, and no, I'm not doing it for this video. I'm here for a good time, and not to get my bollocks pulled off with a pair of salad tongs. And what a fucking campaign it is. While the first one was a steady flow of intense set pieces, Call of Duty 2 is an overwhelming landslide, especially the frigid opening mission with the Ruskies, where you go from learning how to shoot bottles to storming the enemy at the gates, which ends in a pitched battle to take out their base, to a swirling soundtrack. And just watching this clip alone makes me want to fire it up. It's, oh, so good. And this is just a microcosm of how Infinity Ward refined and smoothed out the jagged edges. With its frantic pace, regenerating health, and its stop and pop gunplay, COD 2 captures the chaotic nature of war while making it feel so good to play. It's a shooting gallery, yes, but when it's cooked to this level of perfection, its rail shooter without the rail rigidity melts away. So much so that this formula has barely budged in 2 fucking decades. Okay, enough flowery bollocks. I do have a few gripes, such as the crazy amount of grenade spam, and while the whole mythos of COD is about being aggressive and pushing the enemy back, when I feel like I'm playing Fruit Ninja rather than the next evolution of World War II shooting, maybe dial that shit back. Retreading the same battles is getting tiresome. While there's only a finite pool of conflicts to pick from, I feel like storming the beaches in Normandy, for instance, while an important moment in the war, was kinda done to death by 2005. This is an unfair criticism, of course, as the final chapter of this game, where we redo D-Day, is fantastic, but variety is the spice of life, and right now I feel like I'm eating sand for every square meal. And while I understand the change from a static health system to one where you regenerate, keeps you in the fight, the way they do it here, by making your screen turn red, is not exactly a helpful indicator. Yeah, I know this has become the default now, but I feel like some of the tension is lost when I can hide behind a wall for a few seconds, pinch my nose, then all the bullets riddling my carcass just plop out. Granted, I could alleviate this by playing on veteran, but you know, salad tongs. What is spicy, however, is the British wing of the campaign, where we ride along with the desert rats in Africa, and I really enjoyed this part, mostly due to the visual variety. But what put this over the top for me was that pip pip tally ho, we've gave those Huns a damn good thrashing, God save the Queen shit. That just warms my heart. So yeah, COD 2 is another fantastic campaign, and solidifies what makes Call of Duty, well, Call of Duty. Look, not all closing lines are good. Which leads us into a new era of this burgeoning series. Not only was this the first game doing a John Madden in this series, by becoming a yearly release, it was the first mainline Call of Duty not made by Infinity Ward. And while we know Treyarch now, before COD, their existence was mostly making sports games, or licensed dross, or the wonderfully trashy looking and sounding Draconis, the Cult of the Worm, which looks so my shit, it almost derailed this entire video to cover that nugget. Anyway, Treyarch's foot in the door with our main subject is with their Call of Duty spin-off on the PS2 and the Xbox called the Big Red 1. And no, that's not a euphemism for dog penis. So while Infinity Ward was hard at work taking the franchise to a modern setting, more on that in a minute, Treyarch were firmly placed in the familiar. And while later on, Activision would bring in multiple studios to lighten the load in these annual bum blasts, however in these virgin times, that wasn't the case. And Treyarch, who was tasked to make the next installment of this series, had around 8 months. Yes, you heard me, 8 fucking months. Which even back then was nothing in this era of game making. At least we have a somewhat bespoke story here, which also means bespoke characters. In other words, Guzzo is a whiny bitch. And when it comes to the gameplay, it's business as usual. Until you have a QuickTime event brawl with the Bosch, which I know I mentioned rail shooters earlier, but this to me was a tad cheap. I mean, this is World War II, not fucking Dance Dance Revolution, and if I could put on my speculative ball gag for a sec, this awkward mechanic was a compromise, because this game, while being launched on the big boy consoles at the time, was also a launch title for the Nintendo Wii. And yeah, this was one of 5 ports of this game that all came out around the same time. So not only did they had 8 months, they had 5 games to make. Whew, talk about a blitzkrieg of balls. So yes, while my opinions are mixed on these arcadey pustules, my overall experience with the Xbox 360 port played on the Xbox One X is tolerable. And that's my main problem with COD 3. While it's quote another one and is treated like a major release, it doesn't feel like a main game. Sure, I played it to death back in the day, especially the multiplayer, but going back to it now, all I can see is the digital seams, splitting in spectacular fashion, and while there is some quality moments here, there is a ton of others that lack polish, especially with the back half of the game, where most of the levels feel barren. Oh well, at least the main theme, which has been living rent-free in my head for the last 19 years, is spectacular. And shout out to Joel Goldsmith. So yeah, Call of Duty 3 is a mess, which is unfortunate, as I do like what Treyarch was trying to go for, but some of its more gamery aspects, and the bugs, oh my god the bugs, made it a bit of a chore to play. And besides, this game was solely made in response to Call of Duty 2, because that was so popular at the time, so you could say this was a sacrificial lamb. And besides, it's Modern Warfare time.
50,000 people used to live here. Now it's a ghost town.
Our so-called leaders prostituted us to the West.
Yeah, I know. This is the one that put Call of Duty into the stratosphere, and for its time, the multiplayer was amazing. And I, as well as a lot of you I'm sure, put hundreds of hours into it. But how was the campaign? I don't know why I'm blueballing you here, cause you're about to hear my opinions on it. I am a fucking hack. And straight away, you can tell the storytelling is far more slicker. And just watching these cutscenes now, you can tell they were binging shows like 24 or The Wire, and this is fitting as our boys from Hereford, the SAS, are now taking top billing. So this spy thriller aesthetic is fitting. And speaking of being slippery while wet, we play as Jonathan Soap McTavish, who is being put through his paces as the newest member of this group by his superior, the bearded stallion Captain Price. After being drilled to an inch of his life, no I don't mean a mustache ride, we are tasked to infiltrate an ocean liner that may have weapons of mass destruction. And can you tell that this was a post 9/11 game? And of course the mission goes sideways, and our boys find the nearest dry exit, while in the meantime the inciting moment plays out. And before we have time to process that, we are quantum leaped into another meat puppet, who is part of the invading US Marines. With that America fuck yeah shit. Yeah, we're gonna shoot some brown people for freedom, white picket fences and all that xenophobic twattery. Yeah, it's a bit much, and I'm surprised they didn't give the enemy stick-on Bin Laden beards just to hammer this point home. Okay, I'm being a sassy shit here, as this mission is another slice of fried shooty gold, but playing it now, I can see where this franchise started to pander to the edgy gamer boys in the crowd, especially in contrast to the SAS, who play it somewhat straight, while the American lads seem to rely on cringeworthy machismo and bombast to make their point, and it just feels a bit ugh. And yes, I am refraining from making a joke about dropping the soap. And while I could ruminate on that some more, we are interrupted by the, quote, iconic AC-130 mission.
You are cleared to engage the moving vehicle and any personnel around you see.
Affirmative. Crew, you are cleared to engage, but do not fire on the church.
Clean up that signal.
Check your fire. You're shooting at friendlies. Watch for the blinking strobes. Those are our guys.
Cleared to engage all of those.
Whoa!
Fuck me, this mission is so boring. Yes, I know it's here to break up the boots on the ground gooning, but this section alone drags on like the 100 Years' War, with 100% less dead Frenchmen. Mierda. And just as the Marines are about to jump the jingoistic shark, the naughty boys do a guar and set off a nuclear bomb. And as we all know, you cannot outsnark 500 megatons of Fallout 76 merch. And while this is a contentious moment, the first of many, in Call of Duty, away from the edginess, it is a haunting window into warfare. Now, was this intentional? Debatable. But it did hit me in the feels, so it's notable for that. And speaking of deliberacy, we have another iconic level, all gullied up, where a young Captain Price is joined by his senpai to assassinate a black market arms dealer and main protagonist of this game called Zakayev, who seems to like wheeling and dealing in the post-nuclear Chernobyl, because he loves the vibes, I guess. Sadly, unlike the stalkers that roam this land, Pricey fails to kill Strelok and has to huff it to the extraction point in a tense standoff between him and every vodka-soaked fuckwit this side of Moscow. And yeah, this is quite a striking level indeed. Too bad it's so scripted that my previous dig about the series being an untethered rail shooter takes a few dents here, especially when quite a few CODs post this one attempt to recapture this mood to fluctuating degrees of success. And yes, this is footage from Ghosts, well spotted. That said, Call of Duty 4 overall is a fun time. Is it a bit overblown in terms of critical reception? Yeah, I'd say so. And while I don't care for the American side of this story, but as a whole, it does all come together in a disgusting display of schlock, which I found quite enthralling. But while the franchise was popular before COD 4, this is where it started to really climb, and people were excited on where it would go next. And well, talk about whiplash. So yeah, unhappy with their last effort, Treyarch is back to, well, make one of the best games in this entire franchise. And in my opinion, it's even better than COD 4, if I could ever say such a thing. And oh wait, it's my show, so I can. And while I'm being candid, I have never played World at War until now. And of course I was fully aware of its rep, but the twin prongs of burnout playing COD 4 to death, and this feeling towards the franchise going back to World War II, and question why you even bother, I kinda just skipped it. And oh boy am I kicking myself now, because within the opening few seconds of this sexy looking intro, we see a real clip of Japanese troops being executed. And while this clip killed my boner for graphic design, this drew me in, and while the previous CODs depicted the glory of the Allies pushing the Germans back into their fascist holes, World at War is mostly set in the Pacific Front, and doesn't give a shit for all that valor, instead depicting its conflict in a darker and, more arguably, more honest light. And the gameplay is equally as nasty, with enough blood and dismemberment to make even your local gore grind band wince. Which is funny because check out the soundtrack in a World War II shooter. But away from the iffy music, the game itself seems to relish on pushing your noia, as your foes have a penchant for appearing out of nowhere, like a greased up Tory, to stick you like a succulent pig, which gives it this nasty horror vibe. Especially for a series that wants you to feel cool and powerful, rather than aware of the pain and suffering being caused. And sure, going postal with a flamethrower in any other context would be met with guffaws, but here I almost feel sorry for them. And while I'm mostly indifferent to video game violence, as I know what I see on screen is a fantasy, hearing the enemy's blood-curdling screams as they turn into a charred puddle made me feel nauseous. And away from the Pacific Front, World at War shares its screen time with the Russian forces in another series of gut-punching events. But instead of a greasy imperialistic mosh pit, these sections, you're riding along with grizzled Slav, Reznov, voiced by Gary Oldman, which, fun fact, was the first big actor to voice a character in this series. And you would think he would do what all aging actors do in these types of roles, and completely phone it in. But no, Oldman puts his mission to kill a Nazi officer, which is All Gullied Up Part 2, over the top. Okay, what made it for me was being able to use what I can only describe as a fancy World War II version of a Barrett 50 cal, which turned every Nazi into paste. And I will admit that this level was a perfect pace breaker that played to Call of Duty's strengths, rather than doing a shitty set piece or an AC-130 mission. But what really makes World at War special is its almost sadistic glee in how it deconstructs what makes military shooters tick. Instead of pandering to the quote hardcore gamers and their juvenile egos, this uses its bleaker tone to make you feel something more than catharsis. Yeah, it's still fun, but it's the kind of debauchery that comes with a cold shower and a good long stare at yourself in the mirror for enjoying this shit, you sick bastard. And oh yeah, this was the introduction of the zombies mode, and while it's a fun distraction, it does make me wonder, why would you play this when Left 4 Dead 2 is so much better? Sun up, sun down, and we as game enjoyers gulp down another shovelful of nationalism like warmongering geese. Yes, after the success of the first game, there was going to be the inevitable sequel. Anyway, we kick off in Afghanistan with a weapon demo headed by the sultry voice of Keith David. After showing the locals the power of American steel, we are handed a Desert Eagle, which is not standard US military weaponry, but okay. And as the sense of deja vu is kicking in, we are tasked to do the assault course. And okay, Scott, we are playing as a US Marine, so you gotta inhabit the character. Okay, go. Whew, yeah, I think I nailed that.
Not good enough, Alan. You killed too many civilians. Try it again.
Wait, what do you mean I gotta do it again? And yes, from this point onward, things go foobar, and we ping-pong across the globe and search for a new threat called Makarov, who sounds like a cartoon frog.
They're right on time. Check your weapons and ammo.
I've waited a long time for this.
Haven't we all?
Anyway, on the other end of this shooty coin, Pricey and the lads leave the SAS to form a new group called Task Force 141, which sounds like a child trying to come up with a cool name for its Discord server. Anyway, our new band of mercs are employed to take out our fuzzy felted friend, which leads to the second mission, and probably the most iconic in this entire franchise, where we are guided by our favourite Spec Op detergent, Soap McTavish, in a frozen James Bond style caper, which ends in a bombastic chase sequence. And yes, while he can't make your whites bright, by golly can he shoot people in the face. That said, this is all foreplay, and the actual smoking gun of Modern Warfare 2 is the infamous mission called No Russian, where we inhabit a CIA spook who has infiltrated Makarov's Muppet gang, just before they go to an airport to shoot innocent people, in an act of terrorism so shocking it forced Infinity Ward to put a content warning before the level. While this thing is the pander to pearl clutchers, who think a generation of kiddywinks will be inspired to do this shit, this option to jump in or out of this level feels weird. It completely undercuts the moment, which also makes me question why this is here in the first place. In an interview with GamePro magazine, Modern Warfare 2's lead writer, Jesse Stern, and yes, I'm going to leave his picture taken for this article on screen for comedic emphasis, believes, quote, people have an innate desire to experience mass shootings firsthand, and that this belief further inspired the idea of having the player control a terrorist. And, I have to ask, and I know this following question is never going to be answered, especially after I'm making this a decade after the statement was made, but Jesse, who are these quote people you speak of? And while I would agree there is a morbid curiosity at play here, and I'm open to seeing more darker depictions of warfare through a lens of fiction, but this feels... Anyway, he goes on to say, quote, they, Infinity Ward, didn't intend to rip anything verbatim from real events. All they wanted was to capture that feeling of unimaginable scenarios that are prevalent but so distant from our psyche on any given day. That's the thing about making Modern Warfare 2. It's mostly fantasy. Which, yeah, I agree with that, but these comments feel like an excuse for having your controversial cake and shoving it into your gob, like a provocative spod, and also mostly fantasy? Perhaps I'm being pedantic here, but that feels off. It's like when some Burke says no homo, in a way that makes your ass pucker. Yes, it's a term used to express a certain stance, but saying it out loud will quickly kill the mood. And while I think Jesse is being upfront here, I feel like he doesn't fully understand the implications of what he's trying to do here, and it feels undercooked. Sure, this could be me editorializing, or the article itself having a certain bent, but it just feels bad. And in isolation, this level, while shocking, doesn't really serve a purpose away from that. Yes, it's to prove that Makarov is a cockhinge, but to be brutal here, if this was cut out, I don't think anyone would care. And that's the problem I have with Modern Warfare 2's campaign, which is basically Call of Duty 4 without the feeling. Oh sure, they are trying their best to give you something different, such as the commanding officer of the good boys, General Shepard, who you know is going to fuck you over in the third act, and fine, tropes be tropes. But this wrinkle, in specific, undercuts Kremlin the Frog, who is far more interesting as a bad guy. Funny voice aside. But no, shut your face, you dweeb, and step into the shoes of Soap, who now looks like every member of Five Finger Death Punch compressed into a single bloke, who is trying to chase down old Shepard, because it's a Michael Bay movie without the token lingerie model to ogle at, like a set of jingling keys. And in hindsight, all the previous talk about being coerced to shoot civvies pales in comparison to the rest of this nonsense. Okay, I did squee a little when during this panic to up the stakes, they play the Russia invading America card, which is a concept so silly I couldn't shake this image in my head that Jesse was furiously masturbating while writing this crap. And no, I refuse to shout Wolverines. So while it's huffing paint thinner, Modern Warfare 2 does what it's supposed to do. If you don't drill down on its trenchant excess, there is plenty of goofy machismo to get behind. And while it's nowhere near as tight as COD 4, its ridiculousness in the end won me over. And if you need to know how I really feel about it, apart from the avalanche of bollocks you just heard, the remaster of this game has a dedicated gun porn button, which you can press to admire the lines of your sexy death cock. Need I say more? But if you want filth, then Black Ops is definitely your next Sado obsession. And in a clean break from World War II, Treyarch has finally embraced technology not riddled with woodworm to spin this gritty yarn. Anyway, in this, we play CIA operative Alex Mason, voiced by generic everyman protag in real life, Sam Worthington. Okay, I'm being mean here, as he does a great job of acting bewildered and being in intense pain due to the car battery wired to his nuts. Anyway, the reason why our lad is being tortured is due to knowing a string of numbers that his captors want to know the meaning of. So we travel through Mason's deep-fried memories to find out what the hell's going on. And straight away, I dig the 60s Cold War spy theme here. It has that gritty espionage shit, where tough hombres talk in hushed tones about things that could tip the balance of power, and all that kooky shit. Honestly, it's a welcome break from the bombast that Infinity Ward kept leaning on. And sure, this bar is going to be filled with 80% lead in a couple of seconds, but I appreciate this moment of moody downtime. Also, that smoky transition. After ducking the law, Mason and his gang of merry men are given a mission to take out Fidel Castro. And of course, this mad bastard has more lives than the Russian blue. And it turns out the cigar-chomping fuckwit we just shot in the face was a Castro cosplayer. And the real one here, anticipating this Yankee hit job, captures Mason and carts him off to a gulag, where Alex befriends Viktor Reznov. Yes, the one from World at War. And yes, I'm as surprised as you, they hasn't turned to dust due to old age. And of course, you can never put a cage on Alex Mason, who, with Reznov, orchestrate a prison break, which can only be described as epic. Yes, I hate myself for saying that. And then we're brought back home to have a little tea party with President John fucking Kennedy, voiced by a JFK sounding text-to-speech program.
We are in grave danger from the communists. Our freedom, our very way of life is at risk.
I swear you could park a Lincoln log between those pauses. Get it? It's a presidential joke because Lincoln, oh fuck off. So far, so Call of Duty. But I will say that this is working for me more than whatever Modern Warfare 2 was trying to do. And it's the perfect balance between actual events and fiction to create something enthralling. Which brings us to Vietnam. And I will admit, as this is the first time I ever played Black Ops, I'm surprised that Call of Duty would actually go here. I mean, for a franchise that is infatuated with the American military, setting the game in a theatre that damaged an entire generation of their troops is a nerve I don't think most Americans would like to see touched ever again. And yes, once again, this is a work of fiction. But then, having the player run around mowing down non-Americans with a light machine gun to Creedence Clearwater Revival may come off in some aspects as tone deaf. Well, not that the franchise means anything, right? No homo. But what I do love is this intentional stream of consciousness in its narrative, which allows for a wide gambit of creative scenarios. There's even a level with Reznov back in World War II, which was really fun, and it's a sequel to World at War we will never get. And that's as far as I want to talk about the story. One, due to spoilers, and I can't be asked to pad out the time or a dry rundown, but more critically, the plot is fantastic. Yeah, you could probably see the twist coming from a mile away, but this perfect balance of pulp and pomp just made myself attached to it. And looking at it as a whole package, this is easily the most complete campaign in the entire franchise. And its bleaker tone and frantic gunplay bring this himbo energy that I found wildly entertaining, and if you allow it, it will send you on a white-knuckle journey. It's good shit. Off the heels of Modern Warfare 2, Infinity Ward has made it a hat trick, with the creatively named Modern Warfare 3. Yes, I just used a sports war analogy, but if Infinity Ward can't be asked to make their game name sexy, then why should I bother? While that observation is more of an indictment of the marketing in this series, and my supreme lack of wit, to cut to the chase, this fictional depiction of World War III, with all its big budget bollocks, feels pedestrian. And trust me, I tried to spice it up and atone for my sins by playing it on the Wii, which, to be fair, is on par with its major releases in terms of content. And after playing the Conduit, playing COD with the Wii dildo and nuncock works surprisingly well. Alright, it's nowhere as good as say a mouse or a controller, but it's doing it. Okay, you may notice a problem here, or may not notice it. Because can you see what's actually going on? Yeah, it's a bit blurry, and a perfect simulator for motion sickness. So go Gadget PC version. And yeah, I know, this is the gaming equivalent of the missionary position, but do you want to watch blurry footage while I bitch like Scott the Woz, or stare at nice clean footage while I bitch like Scott the Woz? Good grief, you people are hard to please. Granted, I'm just padding out the sentence with snippy candor because it's far more interesting than talking about the story. But sadly, I've run out of excuses. After being shafted by General Shepard in the last one, the previous members of Task Force 141, a group built to last as you can see, have now been fingered as terrorists, and are now on the run from every despotic fuckwit in the known universe. Meanwhile, a returning Makarov fills the air by waxing lyrical.
All warfare is based on deception. For years, the West's hypocrisy has made the world a battlefield. The corrupt talk, while our brothers and sons spill their own blood.
And I guess he's auditioning for the next game in the Kingdom Hearts series. After the Russian invasion on US soil in Modern Warfare 2, once again, no Wolverines, we join our American friends in New York for a mission to take out a Russian radar jammer, which feels like the USMC opening from COD 4, but with fewer brown people to shoot. And then we raid a submarine that also reeks of the oil rig level from the previous entry, which ends in a tense escape by boat, like that one mission in the second game as well. And if you get lost in a haze of deja vu, just look for the tip with the word follow over his head, like the world's most condescending game of Marco Polo. Okay, these observations are a tad harsh, and while Modern Warfare 3 is happy to retread the classics, for the most part, it's fine. It's that typical Call of Duty maximalism with the tact of Glenn Beck with his cock out. But to me, it's so extra, so overwrought, it feels like it's overcompensating for something. And if you sneak behind the proverbial enemy lines, aka Google shit, it's insane that Modern Warfare 3, while laughably gaudy, manages to be this consistent. Long story medium length, during the production of this game, the main leads of Infinity Ward, Frank Zampella and Jason West, who were the main guys behind the entire franchise to this point, were sacked due to some chicanery pulled by Activision, which basically caused an exodus of talent from Infinity Ward, who left for pastures new at Electronic Arts. I guess hell is what you make of it. Meanwhile, back at the mothership, Infinity Ward, with the help of FPS legends Raven Software and the brand new upstart Sledgehammer Games, more on them later, had to scramble to get this game done and out the door. TLDR, as fine as it may be, I found MW Triple incredibly boring, and its feeling of ennui is mostly down to the story. For a premise that is basically two of the biggest superpowers having a kaiju fight, I didn't get a sense that this was a world-altering event, and my input in shifting this balance meant anything. Even the contentious moment to piss off the knock-knees just feels like an obligation rather than shocking, with no time to sit there and ruminate on what just happened, because seconds later you're back doing warboy shit at the other end of the world. So while I toyed with no Russian and its perceived edginess, here I feel nothing, and honestly I think I'm giving this moment more of a mouthfeel than the writers themselves. Not that you will notice this, however, because when your boots are on the ground, the gameplay carries the story. And of course we have All Gullied Up Part 15, because this time loop of going back to that well is not a bug, it's a fucking feature. And this is where that polish, that extra layer of narrative grunt, is lacking for me. Yeah, when you do a string of missions with your disavowed chums, you don't really think about it, apart from the question I had about how they're funding this shit. I guess the captain is putting his cum catcher to good use. But once again, the plot has this uncanny way to fold together in an ultra convenient string of circumstances. And yes, perhaps I'm wanting a gourmet sausage roll when all I've got is these Poundland specials, but when it's revealed that your avatar, who is the newest member of Captain Pricey's Boys Club, is outed as the former right-hand man of Makarov, and also was present for each OMFG moment in his entire trilogy, it just screams of a colossal ass pull. Yeah, this is basically an idiot plot, which would be a bold move in any other context. But as a satisfying conclusion to this so-called trilogy, no. Okay, the final mission where you take out Makarov by rolling up to his gaff dressed as an ultramarine made me chuckle, but when the credits roll and Pricey enjoys his post-sex cigarette, this left me wanting. Like, yeah, I'm happy to lay in this wet spot after you got up and wiped your knob in a curtain, but could you at least spoon me for half an hour before you pissed on the rug and left? So yeah, while the individual parts tickled my taint, the overall package felt like a wet fart. Cathartic, for sure, but now you have to deal with the smell. Yeah, you can tell this was made in 2012. Yes, Black Ops 2 is upon us, and coming off the back of the biggest media release ever, Ops 2 was going all out, with trailers featuring music by AC/DC, starring YouTubers and other minor celebrities, with some having a rap sheet longer than Brian Johnson's knob. We open this fable with a battalion of dicks, fronted by Michael Rooker, and some bellend calling himself Section, which is funny as we're at an old folks / mental asylum, and the reason why we're here is to have a chat with Frank Woods, Mason's old running buddy from Black Ops 1, who now looks like a microwave sex toy covered in cat's hair. During this conversation, Frank relays his stories laced with more casual bigotry that would make Nigel Farage cringe, while admitting to a brief visit by the big bad of this story, Raul Menendez, who is far more nuanced than your average COD shithead, so of course we barely see him throughout the story. So I'm giving him his flowers now while I stall for time, because his dripping minge grilling this old codger is the son of Alex Mason, and he's called, something Mason. Jack Mason? No, that's not it. Barry Mason? Bollocks, no. Anyway, just like his old man, he's in the family business of slitting throats for the CIA, even though he looks like a frowny face scribbled onto a used tampon. Hey, whoa, I got it. His name is David. Yeah, that's it, David. Good old Davy boy. Big Dave. Manly noises. Growth hormones, T-count, alpha, sigma, smegma, and all that brainstorming manosphere crap. Good lord, he's a boring And this is how the cookie crumbles to the rest of the runtime. It's Black Ops 1, but instead of mind diving through Alex while being waterboarded by JFK's spittle, this time we phase through Frank's memories, like a racist uncle being jacked into the Matrix. Yeah, the underlying himbo-ness of the first has become the entire theme here, and when we finally go behind the eyes of Alex for the opening mission, this change is further evident by the first noteworthy addition to the gameplay since Call of Duty 2. Yes, now you can choose a loadout before you start a mission, which may look like something important, and while the game tries to recommend shit like a milquetoast influencer, for this story I wanted to roleplay as an 80s action hero. So every time I got the opportunity, I went with a light machine gun and all the explosives I could carry on my person for those maximum quote man points. Okay, there isn't a system to gauge that, but just like Arnie and all those other meatheads, they ain't gonna bring a plinker to this firefight, and neither was I. That said, this opening mission in Africa is fucking gorgeous. And you can see Treyarch is embracing an entire array of tones and colours that evoke other emotions apart from monochromatic indifference. Granted, I preferred the scenery when it was called Africa on the PlayStation 3, and I was milling about taking pictures of the local wildlife, but hey, reducing the population with a machine gun has its own merits when it comes to preserving the beauty of this land. But this dazzling display was also the funeral bell for the PS360 era of Call of Duty, as this was the last one released targeting those platforms. Sure, there was a couple more CODs post this release, but these were treated as cast-offs for the so-called plebs. But as I'm one of those weirdos, and another Scot on YouTube that has a soft spot for a console with a bulbous controller, Black Ops 2 was also a launch title for the Wii U, which was Nintendo's spirited attempt of a next-generation console. While the novelty of playing COD on a console, built to satiate the quote hardcore gamers, aka insufferable cretins that hate fun, it's clear to see that this series is hungry for more teraflops. Yeah, it's fully playable, but it plays like an emulator that's not quite at full speed. It's a bit odd. So back on PC, we continue the retro Geneva Convention buggering, with Black Ops 2's second gameplay wrinkle, Strike Force, which is a hybrid of Command & Conquer and Tower Defense, made by people that have never seen or played Command & Conquer or Tower Defense before. Luckily, these boring missions apart from this tutorial are completely optional, which is very welcome because, fuck me, these things are terrible. And yes, I'm lying, because you have to play through every single one to get the best ending. And whoever came up with this idea deserves a stern talking to, or a kick in the genitalia, whichever human resources approves first. And just like a sudden kick in the ghoulies, this story flips between the 1980s with Woods and Mason, and the far-flung future of 2025 with Dull David. And to be fair, while pissing around with goofy future tech is fun, this dual timeline thing doesn't quite come together for me. While the writing is coherent, and in spots hilarious with camp one-liners, that comes off as your dad trying to write tough, doubly so when Michael Rooker starts spitting his kitschy clangers with the conviction of a mouldy condom.
He's just a man, Admiral. He'd like you to think he's something more, but he ain't nothing but a sad, old, pitiful excuse of a man.
Whoa. In the end, all these elements seem to collide with each other rather than slide together. Ultimately, as a story, it's a giant step down. However, gameplay-wise, it's fucking fantastic. It's a total throwback to a time where big blokes mowed down everyone like genocidal landscape gardeners, and I admire it for its balls alone. And unlike Modern Warfare 3, that went all out but left me hanging, Black Ops 2 is a giving lover, and would probably make you breakfast in the morning. Sure, it'd probably be eggs on freshly napalm toast, but I would love it regardless for trying its best. And I had no other way to insert this, so I'm gonna put it here. Later on, you end up on an aircraft carrier called the USS Barack Obama. And when you're done with this story, the game plays out to the cock metal of Avenged Sevenfold. I love this. Whew, alright, after that adrenaline buzz, it's time for Call of Duty Ghosts, to chill the mood, as it was quite the contentious entry to say the least, not only due to the overall quality of the final product, but due to how Ghosts was being pushed into our faces like a giant pair of corpo tits. And speaking of boobs, here is Don Matrick, the figurehead of Xbox, unveiling their latest slab of glossy plastic, the Xbox One. And of course, we as gaming enthusiasts pointed and then laughed. Not due to the bulbous looks of the thing, even though it does look like a fucking space heater. No, but how Don and his band of merry money sluts completely screwed up trying to flog this fucking thing. Once you get past all the cool ways, you can connect this to your cable box. On the gaming side of this game's console, that supposedly plays interactive entertainment, but not secondhand games, you filthy pleb, they had, Madden, FIFA, of course Forza, aka Gran Turismo without the pretension or sumptuous soundtrack. Oh, we had absolutely ridiculous DRM measures tied to your internet connection, which our boy Dom was very upfront about.
Fortunately, we have a product for people who aren't able to get some form of connectivity. It's called Xbox 360.
Oh, that's greasy.
That's really fucking greasy.
Yeah, it's greasy.
And finally, to cap this thrilling trilling, we got an in-depth look at Call of Duty Ghosts, which was a bum blast of excitement so devoid of joy, I would rather watch the telly. So yeah, COD Ghosts being announced on, well, the worst announcement in gaming history was certainly a mood, and this is why I never played it. Besides, I was too busy with shit like Rise, Son of Rome, aka the best skirt-wearing gorefest since Oni Chambara, and Dead Rising 3, a ambitious if flawed entry in the series that was losing its will to live past the first one. Yes, I bought an Xbox at launch. I am a fucking idiot. Anyway, we begin this epic with a cold open in the one place that hasn't been corrupted by Call of Duty. Space! But has been corrupted by chummy wankers, proving that even in this infinite vacuum, everyone can hear you smug. Lucky for us, a group of intergalactic separatists, called the Federation, board the USS Cockend to treat these twerps to a dashing of hot lead. Now, I don't know how bullets would work in space, but for the next 6 hours, logic is a 15-letter word. Regardless, the reason why these naughty people were invading this base is due to it being a control center for an array of orbital lasers that apparently protect America. From what? No idea. Probably giant ants. Meanwhile, back on Earth, we are introduced to our protagonists, Hesh and Logan, who look like a right set of mummy milkers, who are being given a bedtime story by their dad. But thankfully, before they start fucking, this moment is interrupted by those hot loads that are currently pulverizing their middle class cul-de-sac. So the boys run for cover while asking erroneous questions for the sake of our reading comprehension, because the writers think you have the attention span of cottage cheese. And somehow, if you didn't get the intent of this explosive intro, we get an exposition dump by Hesh that is so repetitive and lethargic, it's the second Call of Duty protag that desperately needs 10,000 volts to the sexual organs.
The Federation's rise to power had started years ago, when the great energy-producing deserts were destroyed. The world powers that depended on them collapsed, and in their wake, the Federation began to rise. The Federation united all of South America under one banner. After turning Odin against us, the Federation stood on the doorstep of America.
The Federation. Who wrote this shit? David Cage? Yes, gone are the days of blasting Russians and all post 9/11 clumps of people that were deemed naughty, and now America has sparked a wrestling-style feud with South America. And in return, like an episode of a terrible sitcom, they built a dividing wall to keep the alleged burrito munchers out. And oh, that's where that orange fuckwit got this policy from. So while the story is crawling on the floor on bloodied stumps, what really grabbed me about Ghosts was the look and feel of this world. As a clean break from all the modern warfare shit, the apocalyptic wasteland that Ghosts is trying to imply is striking. Its desolate tone and atmosphere gives off a feeling of hopelessness, especially with the slower paced levels. It's basically all gullied up if it was the entire game. And you know what? I'm feeling that. I love a good stealth game, and while Ghosts isn't much of a stealth game, it does give you that vibe, and I appreciate that. But all of this bollocks pales in comparison to the actual unique selling points of this game. Yes, let's talk about the lovable polygonal pooch, Riley. Oh sure, I could crow over this new engine powering all this tossery, but that's all rendered mute when you stick a dog on the screen, because everyone will be too busy trying to pat its adorable head. Granted, the handful of scenes where you get to play as him is basically the furry version of All Gullied Up, where you sneak through the tall grass, biting the jugular veins of anyone wearing a sombrero or other lazy identifiers. Yes, I'm still harping on the racist bullshit, and while I continue to snark on this, the overall gameplay is what really surprised me. Yeah, it's still your standard COD shite, but it's been done in such a way that if you squint your eyes, you can almost see the future. And while I'm being vague here, this is what kept me playing, and the hilarious moments where these two pillocks fumbled their way through this world like startled pygmy goats plugged the gaps. And bless this game, it does try to pull on your heartstrings with its overall emotional bullshit, but every time some quote emotive moment happened, it just falls so gloriously flat. Like the script was made in a trouser press. And probably the best one is the reveal that Hesh and Loghead's old man is the current leader of the Ghosts, which comes as such a shock, Hesh almost shits himself. It's like, how didn't you know? You had to know. So yeah, Ghosts is bad, but it's so blockheaded I can't help but love it. It's a turd covered in so many sprinkles that the sugary crust almost takes away the taste. And its ass-backwards plot almost feels prophetic in hindsight, depressing as that may be. Like, yeah, I don't fuck with its jingoism, because ick, but it's so fucking dumb, so devoid of human thought. I did get a kick out of it. And while the credits roll on this dog egg of a story, we are serenaded by Eminem, which is a perfect closer. Not due to the themes of the song, god no, it's trash. But just like Marshall Mathers, this series post-Black Ops feels like an elongated midlife crisis. So let's freshen this shit up with Advanced Warfare by Sledgehammer Games. Yes, after saving Modern Warfare 3, Activision gave this new team the green light to make a COD of their very own. The thing is, Advanced Warfare wasn't the original idea. During the late 2000s, this hot new prospect was working on a third-person spin-off, which was later scrapped during the previously mentioned drama. And to be fair, Sledgehammer's pedigree in third-person murder sims was already established, as the members of this brand new team were former stalwarts of Visceral Games, the sickos that brought you Dante's Inferno and a little game known as Dead Space. And before I completely derail this video to drop to my knees and give a gummy blowjob towards that sumptuous series, Advanced Warfare, which is the blandest name imaginable, stars Jack Mitchell, the whitest bloke ever, voiced and faced by Troy Baker. Because there is no God. Anyway, in Jack's opening monologue, because it's a Shakespeare sonnet for some fucking reason, he regales us with the reason why he followed his family's footsteps.
We come into this world with our eyes closed, and most of us choose to live our whole lives that way. We blindly follow.
Blah blah blah, he felt the Call of Duty, who the fuck cares. On a side note, I never got the appeal of military families. I mean, why would you raise a child for 18 to 21 years for them to get shot in the face? Oh, sorry, I drifted off there. Anyway, Jack and his mate, who have been buddies since childhood, and I can't remember his mate's name, so let's just call him Noble Sacrifice Edmonds, have been drafted to the front lines to defend, quote, democracy against North Korea. After, quote, liberating the locals with a power of sci-fi weaponry, our best friend does his contractual obligations, and we slam cut to his funeral, which... yes, it's time to pay our respects with the mandatory button prompt. Classy. Now, you'd think I'd get pissy about this, like some self-serious essayist bumballoon, but for me, this misplaced token of respect is as laughable as it is meme-worthy. Sadly, this gaudy display is interrupted by the leering presence of Kevin Spacey, who is at this shindig due to his son being the knob in that closed casket, who then arrogantly passes Jack an invitation to join his own private military corporation, which in another jump cut gets our avatar with a new robotic arm and a new purpose in life. Well, apart from giving himself strangers for the rest of his miserable days. So far so meandering, but before we slip into a shooty coma, we have to contend with the supposed, quote, big bad of this mush, a man called Hades. And I would elaborate, but he does a wonderful job jabbering his own manifesto to us in this convenient voice note.
People of the world, you have hidden behind the protection of technology. Technology is a cancer. I am here to liberate you from this cancer.
Yes, our foe is so fucking dense, he cannot see the 5G shit on his knees, that he has to use technology in order to make this threat. Actually, this kind of reminded me of a time I had a date with a, quote, militant vegan, who for the entire evening gave me a sermon about how eating meat and using its byproducts are wrong, while wearing a leather jacket and shoving a massive pack of wine gums into their gob. But instead of focusing on that crushing sense of loneliness, because it doesn't matter, because Hades dies like a bitch early on, so... oh well, at least we got the gameplay to fall back on. Such as the RPG mechanics from the multiplayer mode that have now infested the story. Well, I say that like it isn't a token thing, where you spend actual tokens to get shit like an extra grenade in your pouch, and honestly, I'm starting to question why I even mentioned this because it's so fucking boring. Oh, and the cool yet extremely underutilized movement system, where you can double jump and dash and all that shit, like a boring version of Samus Aran, especially when the level design doesn't really cater to this potentially interesting gameplay wrinkle, and even later on you get a grappling hook, which hell yeah, grappling hooks are cool, and I imagine in the multiplayer they were very cool, but here it just feels like the devs were shooting gusts of wind out their cheeks, wondering how the hell they're going to stick it in here. And that's my takeaway of this campaign. While there are some elements that stimulate, Advanced Warfare is kind of a nothing burger, with a story with predictable twists and turns that might have been an interesting take on the commercialization of war if it wasn't so benign. So away from the nerdy excitement of using laser guns and bounce off the walls like a weeb in a waifu cushion factory, Advanced Warfare is a thumbs down. Now, we all know that war never changes, but in regards to Call of Duty Black Ops 3, sometimes it gets worse. Much worse. And I know I've pierced that supposed veil of keeping my views impartial and shit until the very end of the segment, but then you have been watching this for an hour, so if you haven't got a whiff of how I review stuff, then kindly piss off back to IGN. Sorry, I'm being salty of course, and after playing this tripe, that is the only emotion I was certain of. Gameplay wise, it's the same shit, different toilet, apart from being a gun-toting mage, who casts spells like nanobots that make people spontaneously combust, which is somewhat amusing if you forget the +1 magic bullet spitter you're currently holding in your hands. Also, you have other abilities that are used once in the tutorial and never used again, and basically this interactive bollocks is just a thing to do with your hands whenever it's off cooldown, like a misery dispensing fidget spinner. Also, during your daily murderous commute, the levels have a tendency to fork, which sounds like a great thing, if whatever path you picked meant anything, which it doesn't. But holy shit, in a stunning innovation and a lightning rod for terminally online weirdos to act even fucking weirder, you can now select the gender of your murder-tar, which if you can't pass my snarks, was a genuine welcome choice, especially after being forced to control a never-ending run of preening jock tosspots. But once again, with every positive, there is the cold toilet water of disappointment splashing my ass, as this choice doesn't change the dialogue or anything. But then I might be asking for too much, considering your character is called Player. Yes, Player. And if that isn't a telling indicator of what is to come, then I don't know what is. And while I made a joke about the edgy audience earlier, I think we all know that this is bollocks. Call of Duty as a series is built for mass appeal, but there is something about how this story is told that just rubs me the wrong way, such as over-explaining the erroneous stuff, but then it forgets to give pertinent information, to the point I felt like it was a fever dream, which may have been the intent, if it wasn't so bogged down with other bullshit. And I just got this feeling that the writers were targeting the edgy teens in the audience, but on reflection, this story comes off as desperate. And I know sci-fi as a concept is silly, that's why I love it so much. But the story here feels like a William Gibson novel written by Ernest Cline, and I say that with all the contempt I can muster. Thing is, it may not look like that at first, as the initial premise seems fine. After the opener, that ends with Player losing all her limbs, we and our sidekick Hendrix, more on this Trent Reznor looking tit in a second, are given a direct neuro interface, so you and your squad can communicate telepathically, and also go through the memories of a terrorist attack, where
outcome, train go boom, train go boom, train go boom. What do you think I'm gonna say next? Outcome, train go boom.
Yeah, what he said, multiple fucking times. And this is where my main annoyance with Blops 3 stems, that every piss hydrant in this tale loves to talk, which seems like an odd bitchy Falcon point. And yeah, however, my main problem with the writing is that it's chock full of millennial dialogue. You know, that quipping bollocks that seemed to plague everything in media in the mid-2010s. That mix of quote-unquote jokes that say 50 vaguely amusing things while crossing its fingers that you might actually laugh over one of them. But instead of these vague attempts at mirth or satire, here in Black Ops 3, replace them with pure, unadulterated smugness. And that's this game in a sycophantic nutshell. And speaking as a millennial, I hate this shit above everything, which as you can imagine, is a precarious position, because my own brand of humour could be classed in the same manner, but unlike this fucking story, I know when to shut my mouth. Also, the sheer amount of swearing in this game got on my nerves. And yeah, I know, that's Reg coming from a twat who barks more expletives like a terrier with Tourette's, but abrasive language can be used to emphasize a point. But here, the word fuck sounded like a sentence break. And yeah, I understand why they're doing this. They are trying to evoke a darker theme here, but to me it just comes off as crass, which may have worked if the tongue was firmly lodged in its cheek, but from my interpretation, it's not. This is completely self-serious, and if there was any kind of humour, it's beaten to death by tons of just erroneous talk. Which finally brings me to Hendrix, who is one of the most obnoxious characters I have ever witnessed. If he wasn't spouting movie cliches, like a middle-aged retro gaming influencer, he was just being an all-American prick, where every line spoken has this pissy undercurrent to it, like a petulant child being told off for stuffing coins up his nose.
Do as I say and you'll make it through this. What about Lieutenant Khalil and the others? Sorry, no time. Khalil was a hero of the Cairo uprising. You know that makes him a valuable asset for their propaganda. They will make an example of him. Fuck! Alright, let's go!
Sure, there is a plot reason why he becomes increasingly annoying throughout the story. The thing is, he is a knob from the first minute of this adventure to the very last. And what wore me down was the entire cast droning on and on and on. Like if they didn't say 50 words a minute, the bombs stuck up their asses would fucking go off.
Listen only to the sound of my voice. Let your mind relax. Let your thoughts drift.
Yeah, right, stop it.
Let peace be upon you. Surrender yourself to your dreams. Let them wash over you like the gentle waves of the bluest ocean. Let them envelop you.
Don't
comfort you.
Don't let it beat you.
Imagine somewhere calm.
Oh, shut the fuck up. And speaking of repeating myself, there are multiple times we have to fight these spider tank things, which doesn't sound like a big deal, but these are here to stop you from rolling over everything like a tedious cheese going down a mundane hill, and it just reeks of Treyarch not having the time to come up with something else, or they're so creatively tapped, they're just hacking this shit out to reach a deadline. And everything just stinks of, oh, that would be cool. And yeah, there are some cool bits. In spots, when it's attempted to comment about how machines and AI algorithms could never compare with humanity, there is something interesting to grab hold of here. Sure, it's basically the default when it comes to sci-fi, but the reason why transhumanism has been so effective is because this quandary has been a long-running anxiety in our culture. It's relatable. But unfortunately, this story fumbles that outline, to the point I'm not even sure if they know what they're trying to say. But instead of beat switching and making the message of the story worth anything, they plow through, adding more bits to its biomass, until it was the only thing left in the room, an incoherent cancer of words, for the sake of words. And while I give it credit for attempting something subversive, the actual story being told is so cack-handed and repetitive, it flattens anything worth a shit, like the world's most boring game of whack-a-mole. Bottom line, I hated Black Ops 3. It marries boring gameplay with obnoxious characters in a cornucopia of crap that should be studied for its pretentious twaddle alone. Honestly, I've seen better writing at glory holes. Wow. We have come a long way since the beaches of Normandy. Oh yes. After flirting with space and ghosts, Infinity Ward have gone all in with Infinite Warfare, because the tagline Star Wars was already taken. We begin in the back of a space helicopter, full of space spooks on a space mission to a space black site to do some space-based espionage by space sneaking around and stabbing space separatists in their space necks.
Space!
Alright, pack it in. Sorry, I don't know what came over me there. Yeah, we're here to recover a space gun that can kill space itself. Okay, that's a bit of space speculation on my end, however stop it! After this galaxial nonsense, our goons are accosted by the SDF, which are basically Nazis from Mars, or Mazis as I was calling them, fronted by old mopey bollocks himself, Kit Harington, in another episode of stunt casting, which so far hasn't been tainted by the talent, and just look at him. I just want to pinch his adorable cheeks for trying so hard to be a dictator.
This place isn't yours anymore. Kill them. Save the bullets.
Aww, you are so detestable! After this cosmic cock-up, we are introduced to Reyes, who looks like the lead bloke from NCIS, but here, he's played by Brian Bloom, who played Pike in the reboot of the A-Team, which I totally forgot was a thing, and I'll quickly forget it again once I finish this sentence. Anyway, for us pervs, you may know him as this hunk.
Do or die, son. Same as always.
Nice. After being told no by a superior officer on hearing Adolf Snow's intentions, BJ Reyes is stuck on Earth, hobnobbing with all the higher-ups and plebs who are having a gaudy parade, until the Helghast invade, to Pearl Harbor the shit out of them. So our team, joined with everyone's favourite dry whip machine, Ethan, takes to the Big Black, in their craft called the Retribution, I know, very subtle, to go and get some bloody revenge. And while I don't want to bore you with the deets, after enduring Black Ops 3, this clean and clear story of Earth versus Mars is like Charles Dickens, especially when you are tasked to take out prominent members of the SDF. In a series of sorties on the ground, in the vacuum of space where bullets still work, once again just ignore that part of your brain, and the incredible Jackal missions, where you get to take on the Space Luftwaffe in a series of fast-paced dogfights. Honestly, these bits alone rival even the best arcade flight sims. So much so, I'm surprised they never fully capitalised on this and made it into a standalone mode, or even a game. I would happily play this over fucking zombies, that's a damn sure. And hell, they knew they had a good thing, because you could download a demo of this to play in VR. Sadly, it was PlayStation VR exclusive, but if you have the tech, give it a shot. It's fucking great. So as you can see, the loop is pretty simple. Well, to be fair, you can beat this campaign in a couple of hours. But to me, all the side bits, and of course the Jackal missions, are my favourite parts of Infinite Warfare. Yeah, sure, the side levels are heavily reusing assets, but what kept me playing was the gunplay, because it feels incredible. In fact, just like in Black Ops 2, you can select the loadout. So originally I was going to channel Stargate SG-1 and use a P90, but then I quickly found out yeah, this thing kicks like Tim Curry with a custard slice. And that's what I love about Infinite. Instead of the self-serious prattling we had previously, Infinity Ward has put the fun first. And a character like Ethan, who speaks in nothing but irreverence, is the most charming and genuinely funny character in this entire franchise.
Get your mechs onto the transports. They're spearheading the assault.
Solid copy. Be advised, they're dumber than I thought, sir.
And this measured approach to everything just shows how far Call of Duty has come. And moreover, when it's all said and done, this wacky space caper has more in line with the original games in terms of being respectful to the troops. It's got it all. And I'm trying to keep these reviews spoiler free, but this time I have to talk about the ending. After working your way through Kit's crew, you get to his half-dead corpse, where you grab him by the collar so he can do his final villainous speech. Or you can do what I did and shove a knife in his throat, because bless him, on a good day, he can barely get out a couple of sentences before he looks like a shitting puppy. So yeah, I did him a kindness, and was awarded with the You Know Nothing achievement. Oh, I love this game. But yeah, there is one lingering theme I have on Infinite Warfare before we move on, that I'm kinda tired of the sci-fi shit. Can we have a Call of Duty set in Narnia or the Shire? Hell, it's been a minute, so why not do one Fang and one Fang? Oh fuck it, you know where I'm going with this. When I heard about Call of Duty going back to World War II, my first question was, why? There are tons of conflicts that the series could explore and draw inspiration from, like the Commodore 64 versus the ZX Spectrum, the Sega Mega Drive versus the Super Nintendo, or some other manufactured bollocks. Alright, I would ask the creative director of the franchise and head honcho Treyarch, Dave Anthony, on what theatre of war deserves to be hauled out for our garish entertainment, but sadly, I don't have his phone number. And if I did, he'd be too busy yapping to the military bigwigs in Washington about the dangers of future, probably made up, tech.
Imagine you had an insect drone, has a camera on it, has a little bit of cyanide somewhere, and maybe it's got a sting on its tail or something. Imagine you've got a swarm of these. Imagine the camera has facial recognition software on it.
Usually I would have something witty to say here, but that ridiculous soundbite alone is comedic gold. But away from all this piffle, it would be interesting to see a modern day take on this formula, to tell the definitive World War II story, and after the triumph of the last game, I bet Infinity Ward is itching to... wait, this is a sledgehammer joint? Oh no. Yes, the team that brought you the thrilling Advanced Warfare, if you get off on staring at a war painted in the most boring colour imaginable, World War II, or just WW2, because marketing has completely given up, but standards and practices forbade them for sticking by the shit you on the box, is a total throwback. Hell, it's so archaic, regenerating health is out, and in is this little thing called a health bar. Ooh, how exotic. And to keep the streak, World War II is another game with a known actor in a pivotal role, and this time, the dart landed on Josh Duhamel, after his stunning roles as military dickhead in the Transformers flicks, and other movies that might be interesting if I cared. Yeah, I'm going to leave this sentence hanging. But for you lore jockeys, you know him as Jacob in the Callisto Protocol, and if you watched that hour-long moaning session, you know I didn't like it that much. But wait, that also means, yes, friend of the show and fellow midlife crisis cosmonaut, Glenn Schofield, is the head of Sledgehammer Games. Was this dramatic reveal worth it? Nah, not really. But hey, you try writing 21 reviews for a single video. and I think our boy G-Skull has a man crush. So, anyway, yeah, World War II is pretty fucking good, and I know I'm not going sicko mode on this one, but come on, do I really need to explain a World War II story in a Call of Duty game that's like the others but slightly sharper? Okay, I'm being pedantic again, but what really grabbed me was its brevity, especially later on, where it relishes punching you in the guts without it feeling schmaltzy. And while it's not going for the throat like in World at War, it doesn't shy away from the horror either, which brings us over to my favourite character in this game, Zussman. And yeah, another spoiler alert, and also a content warning. During the last quarter, Zussman gets captured by the Reich, and is sent to one of the quote, labour camps. However, the problem is that our prisoner is Jewish, and it doesn't take a scholar to work out where this is going. So in the epilogue, after busting through Germany, our squad looks for their brother in arms. And walking through this camp is, yeah, it's brutal. While you don't see any gore or any sort of grotesque imagery, just the implication of what happened here just brings this sense of dread and sadness. Even our main character cannot even fathom the amount of pain and suffering going on here.
These were our guys.
Take out your camera. The world's gotta know.
His voice cracking just gives you that feeling of looking at something so horrifying. While the other games played out as some gaudy song to bask in the glory of its juvenile spectacle, here is more of a sympathetic take on the people who sacrificed everything. And before I go, all schmaltzy myself, this sober finale hits like a brick to the face. It doesn't use cheap tactics or tricks, it just lets you drink it all in. And fuck. I'm trying not to cry here, but yeah, reliving this moment again for this video, and yeah, it's brutal. It's fucking horrible. And for a series that gets blasted for being propaganda, I think this is the first time they actually gotten real. I mean, properly real. And honestly, I think Sledgehammer smashed this. For what it could have been, we get a slice of something that could have been reheated glories, but no. They managed to make the most poignant entry so far, and it's a damn fine adventure.
Recon threat down.
Ah, fuck. After Black Ops 3, I really don't want to play another fucking campaign of this shit. Which is good, because Call of Desperation Black Ops 4 doesn't have one. Oh, thank God. But what it does, however, is the Specialist HQ, which is a glorified tutorial with a micro-story weaving through it. So yeah, we open this guff with a video which is so cringeworthy, I wanted to scoop my brain out of my skull and toss it into a wind turbine. But no time to ruminate, we slam cut to the remaining Mohawk tit, who's been employed by Timu Gwyneth Paltrow to... yeah, who cares? And once you've called from that gauntlet of exposition, we are subjected to the VR version of Frank Woods, who tutorializes you for the rest of this game. In other words, he walks around verbally masturbating like a swaggering
Now get your ass over to the marker. Sometimes you get caught out in the open. Shit happens. You set it, you hold it, then you toss when ready. Just like a Caesar salad. Hey, sticks and stones may break your bones, but cluster grenades will fuck you up dead. They do not give a shit. They will stick to everything and everyone.
Seriously, every line that falls out of his mug caused my eyes to roll so hard I could see my arsehole from the inside. So yeah, past all that shit, Black Ops 4 is a hero shooter now, where you select an operator with their own magical powers, and of course, quirky personality, if Boris Twat is a personality. And after you are canonized by Woods, you have to play a mandatory game of multiplayer, with bots, which must be the video game equivalent of Forever Alone. Okay, there are a few of these cutscenes that give our cast a tiny bit of relatability, but sadly they are smothered by the other unlikable donkeys, with that millennial writing in complete overdrive mode. And sure, I've seen games with crass aesthetics before, like Postal, but underneath that offensive crust, there was actual social commentary and humour to undercut its vexatious bullshit. And yes, I'm trying to increase my vocab. And now you're probably saying, oh come on you grumpy knobhead, there must be some redeeming features here. And yeah, sure, the gore is pretty funny. It's a base pleasure, of course, but the amount of ways to turn your foes into chunks did make me laugh, because it's so ridiculous. Which in a gameplay aspect, I would assume, in the PvP the explosive weapons are the meta, as the normal guns all feel like the same, like shit. And I know this is a balanced mechanic, so you don't get blasted before you can react, but for a series that's focused around actual guns and not soft dart toys, trading that for competitive dial-up speedrunning is definitely not something I'm vibing with. And of course we have the mode that everyone played this game for, Blackout, which was basically Call of Duty's first attempt at a battle royale. And I have one rule when it comes to BRs: if it ain't Tetris 99, then I don't give a shit. So yeah, Black Ops 4 is not for me. While it's focused on multiplayer, and I don't really give a shit about the multiplayer anymore, the single player stuff is just irritating. And while I could just draw a line under this and move on to the next game, this quick rundown of Detritus wearing a mask for a game review just doesn't feel right. Actually, my original idea was not to play Black Ops 4 at all, but instead play the spin-off games on the PS2, like Finest Hour, which was actually the first COD game I ever played. But replaying it here for a couple of hours, how do I say this gracefully? It's really fucking boring. It's not bad, but it's not doing anything for me either. It had some interesting story ideas, and the gameplay is serviceable in a hand-me-down Mad Catz controller sort of way, but to me it's just Call of Duty on the PS2, the COD we have at home. Nothing to inspire or excite, just a slab of meat to satiate the World War II goldmine, which in that era had better and more innovative titles falling out of his ass on a daily basis. I think it's time we call a ringer. This is Homefront, developed by Chaos Studios, and was for its time the much anticipated follow-up to their groundbreaking debut, Frontlines Fuel of War. And by groundbreaking I mean, if you accidentally drop the pallet, containing all the unsold copies. Okay, Homefront. How do I explain this one? Right, as a hypothetical, let's say Chaos was looking at the competition and saw that Call of Duty and its ilk was popping off. So they said, alright, I wanted to capture that pot of gold, while around the same time their publisher was giving themselves a swirly for fun, shit. This mind palace is starting to fall apart. So let me spit some bile towards the publisher. Yep, say hello to THQ. The best game shitter ever. Okay, I hate THQ, which is notable because most of these splash screen squatters at the start of games are indeed shitty. But THQ, for their time, was easily the worst of them. And yes, in the dark pit of my being, there might be a handful of titles they funded that are near and dear to my heart, but if you are looking for tacky, tasteless corpo fuckery, you are looking at ground zero, especially when everyone involved in Homefront thinks that you, the player, is a gibbering moron. Anywho, we play as, let's call him jingoistic fuckface Smith, who is ripped from his masturbation emporium and stuck on a bus to a destination not defined. And on this journey, we look in apparent horror as America has been occupied by Korea. No, not North or South, a unified Korea. And fun fact, this Republican stroke material was written by John Millis, who brought us Red Dawn and Apocalypse Now. And while his work inspired a generation of pulpy Cold War silliness, by 2011, when Homefront plopped into our collective consciousness like the world's most racist dick pic, this type of story and how it's told feels medieval. Anyway, narrative convenience saves our protag, and we are recruited into the local resistance group. And can you guess what the driving force of this story is? To steal a helicopter. Oh sure, we have an occupying force that is trying to turn their homeland into a prison planet, but no. Just get to the chopper. Like I said before, this is made for idiots. And this said resistance is, wow. You know I hated Hendrix and Woods for their constant stream of shit? Well now you have a group full of them, all equally unlikable in weird and torturous ways. And they love to beat you over the head with their spicy views. To the point later on, we end up in a gunfight with white supremacists, and I was conflicted on who to shoot first. Also how the levels are scripted is just asinine, because when you move from A to B, you have to wait for your squad to do everything. This campaign is 3 hours long, by the way. It feels like 30. So if the story and level design is tripe, the gameplay, as you just saw, is a 9-course meal of fucking tripe. It's awful. It's really stiff, and trying to aim feels like you're trying to bum yourself with a magnetic field chamber. And while I'm a big fan of ragdolls, the lack of feedback in both shooting and getting shot kills any kind of meat-headed thrills. But if you love a game with egregious product placement, then you'll be dining well on White Castle or Taco Bell or whatever gunk merchants they shoehorned into this shit. Especially one moment where our enemy occupy a local Hooters. And while I have this guttural need to defend the poor femboys trying to make ends meet, I laughed pretty hard when one of my squad kept name dropping the brand during the usual military chatter, to the point I think she was saying registered trademark under her fucking breath. This violent uprising is brought to you by TigerDirect.com. So yeah, that was Homefront, and while the allure of playing something trashy is always on the menu here on this show, here, no. Just go play Modern Warfare 2 instead. You know, the game they shamelessly ripped off. Yeah, I did not like this in the slightest, and it's a prime example of how studios and publishers scrambled to put out their own COD adjacents, even in a marketplace that by 2011 was becoming stagnant. And we know the mainstream games industry loves to dick ride anything that is popular, but Homefront, past its gaudy marketing stunts, was a massive flop. And this, as well as a few other goofs by THQ, it would quickly kill the company. So yeah, when everyone's ripping off your shit, to the point where even your own digital bowel movements lose impact, what do? Well, you go back to what you did before, and pretend that the old wasn't the intended vision of this ailing franchise. That's right, everything old is new again, as Infinity Ward went back to the well with its 2019 take on Modern Warfare. And while it would be easy to go into a cynical screed on why revisionistic media sucks, Modern Warfare 19, to me, is fascinating. I know I said this a few times now, but what puts this over my previous gushes is how this game in particular blurs its lines between fiction and reality. And to save you a lengthy rant, something that irks me in the YouTube review space is this notion of, quote, realism in video games. And yes, this is me mostly being pedantic over a catch-all word used to describe a vibe over being literal, but for me in this genre, authenticity goes a long way. If you can trick my noggin that the dudes I'm left clicking into non-existence had loved ones they are never seeing again, then I'm a happy boy. I am a fucking monster. Sure, you have actual military simulators that heavily lean into realism, but for the most part, these sims are more of a toy box than your standard linear story-based game. So Modern Warfare taking these elements to its own arcadey sphere was a refreshing move, and this leaning into authenticity is evident from the first frame, as the gun that you're currently holding is set to semi-automatic, which sounds like an insignificant detail at first, and yeah, I would agree. But when you have people like former SAS member Billy Billingham pointing this out,
the target indication's good and it's aim shots. It's not automatic and craziness.
My ears start to prick up, and I won't drone on about this, but this video, produced by Gamespot, where Billy lays down a ton of praise on Modern Warfare 19, made me realise how much care Infinity Ward were taking to craft this said world. And this tiny detail says a lot about how Infinity Ward are approaching its reboot. While the underlying plot is still pulpy, the emphasis on practicality is clear, and what is better fiction than drawing from real life shit? In an interview with Game Informer, campaign director at Infinity Ward, Jacob Minkoff, and studio narrative director, Taylor Kurosaki, were asked the question that most game makers dread if their new slab of rationalized genocide is political. And their answer was, just watch.
I don't think it's a political game. Really? But the thing is that people read into that in different ways, right?
Yeah, like that's a tough, like, what do you mean by political?
That doesn't mean anything. Right. The question, is this a political game, doesn't actually mean anything, because it's what does the word political mean to you? Do we touch topics that bear a resemblance to the geopolitics of the world we live in today? Hell yeah, because this is that is the subject matter of modern warfare. Are we telling a story that has anything to do with the specific governments of any countries that we are portraying? No.
While I don't think they're being dishonest here, I think the problem, and why it was so controversial at the time, was the roundabout and meandering way the question was handled. And I get it, being caught in the headlights can be debilitating. But that said, if you are drawing from real politically charged moments from our history for your own fiction, it doesn't exonerate your text of its political overtones. And pussyfooting around that in the face of, well, everyone with half a brain makes you look silly. And I'm no etymology expert, and somewhere in hell Socrates is now breathing a sigh of relief. This underlying frustration of seeing the proverbial elephant in the room and still denying its presence is insulting. Look, just say it. Just say it. Yes, this game is political. Big fucking deal. And while that sounds like some crowing from a lefty liberal fuckwit, and ding 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 you just hit the jackpot, the thing is that the majority of COD players do not care about this aspect. They just want to be entertained, and that is fine. But for those of us that are interested in how the digital sausage is made, and how writers and creatives use our history to make their own stories, this is maddening. And when I was playing the game and not pissing and moaning about this stupid interview that's been stuck in my craw for 5 years, there are quite a few times I had this unnerving sense of deja vu. So, let's break that down. In the level called the Highway of Death, a returning Captain Price, flanked by newbies Farah and Alex, are on the search for the Wolf, a leader of a local terrorist cell, who is supposed to be travelling through this highway. But what it actually is, it's just a gameplay excuse to piss around with a sniper rifle. And if I'm counting this correctly, this is all gullied up, part 1,256,492. But what is hilarious is that this level was based on an actual real-life event called, well, the Highway of Death. Yes, stunning creativity, lads, where in the aftermath of the Gulf War, coalition forces attacked a retreating Iraqi military, resulting in the destruction of hundreds of vehicles and the deaths of their occupants. With a ton of organisations post this conflict questioning the accuracy of who the occupants of these vehicles actually were. But nah, mate, the level here in Modern Warfare has nothing to do with that. We just like the visual of twisted metal and bodies cooking in the desert sands. There's nothing controversial happening here. It's all good. Next on this fairground ride of historical revisionism, we have the Wolf's Den, which is a continuation of the Highway of Death, where our boys raid the compound of the titular twat, which of course was inspired by Operation Neptune Spear, the mission to capture or assassinate Osama bin Laden. And to be fair, this level gets a pass from me, as it beats the penisy PS1 renders or the news outlets were doing around that time. But then, Call of Duty making a level about this screams of that America fuck yeah jingoism that feels at odds to what the pivotal part on the War on Terror symbolised. And lastly, we have Piccadilly, where this previously mentioned terrorist cell does a cheeky breaky in our nation's capital, reminiscent of the 7/7 bombings. And while this, and the next mission, Clean House, gives us an intimate look at the terror and chaos this type of attack can cause, for some this may feel a tad ghoulish. But like I said, this is a work of fiction. And yes, I did find these levels entertaining. And gaudy as it may be, to plunder so many contentious moments in such a small space, I think this version of calling their politically charged games as such is, once again, fascinating. But now that I've been ruminating on why we see this kind of discourse, in my subjective view, it feels like the P word and its ramifications make people uncomfortable. It's not the actual politics that triggers this response, it's the notion that the thing you're consuming may ask you to comprehend your actions. And I know I'm starting to sound like a discount Ben Jordan here, but what I find insidious is that all of this is a smokescreen, because Activision and Call of Duty were already in cahoots with the US military. From sponsoring events to their esports league, the US military and Call of Duty were hand in hand, and actively trying to push their propaganda to anyone who would consume it. In the original draft of the script, I was going to talk about how the army, before this collaboration, made their own game to specifically recruit gamers to their cause. But then I found Vice News beat me to the punch, so if you want to check that out, the link is below. And spoiler alert, it's fucking depressing. But the further I went down this bomb crater, the more insane this partnership was. Granted, it was short-lived due to Activision landing in hot water due to the sexual harassment scandal back in 2021, but by then the US Army had planned to go into the world of content creation on its own. Yeah, hoorah to ashes, my fellow game likers. If we can't infiltrate one of the biggest media franchises in the world, let us don our gamer shirts, fire up our webcams, and bring the military entertainment complex to children on Twitch. And we know you youngins love giveaways, so how about you click on this shady link for a chance to win an Xbox Series X. Oh, haha! Nope, this link actually goes to our recruitment page. I know you're not old enough to enlist yet, but we'd love to use you as a meat shield once your nappy rash clears up and you're on solid food. And I know this sounds like bullshit. And trust me, I felt like I was going mad reading all this shit. But no, it's real. And these online rug pulls were so bad, Democratic Chad, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, proposed a ban on the military using Twitch in this manner, which of course got shut down. No one's going to get in the way when there's money to be made, right? No matter how many corpses pile up. Now, I don't have to tell you how mental this is, and I get that the people in the military need to blow off steam, so forming esports teams on taxpayers' money is certainly a worthwhile pursuit, but what the fuck? So yeah, away from all that, if you can get away from all that, Modern Warfare 2019 is a banger. And while you may have figured that this was a lot of piffle before the piss, no, I think it's really fucking good. Even with all the plundering of recent contentious events, Modern Warfare 2019 brings it all together with such confidence that kept me in my seat to the very end. And yes, I would argue it gets a tad too real at times, but the world crafted here is a dense and believable one. And there's just so much stuff I could gush about. Every little detail is just perfect. And while at first I was cautious that it would be another plate of reheated atrocity in isolation, MW 2019 is good. Very good. And some might argue that it was so good, it killed the franchise. Put a pin in that.
Go, Bell! I'm right behind!
2020 was such a weird time, man. And while we as a collective were wallowing in our own black sites, with the only thing for comfort was a bunch of celebrities singing Imagine so poorly it almost made John Lennon rise from his grave to double tap everyone involved, we had the 5th entry in the Black Ops series to keep us warm in its pillowy Republican bosom. And now saying that line out loud and realizing how fucking melodramatic that is, I can't get this image out of my head of Ronald Reagan with tits. Yes, if the timeline in the series and my weird boners wasn't fucked enough, Blop's Cold War actually takes place during the Cold War, 1981 to be exact. And straight away, even though I hated the worship of that decade in the 2010s, I'm so glad to see the series cut all the bullshit and get back on track. We start this trip down memory lane with a CRT filtered mood setter, framing the paranoia between America and Russia, because at one point in our history, they were actually rivals. Anyway, our opening mission, we ride along with our superior, Russell Adler, and... oh hi Frank Woods. Are you going to be cool, or am I going to have to slam your head in the car door?
Hey, Mason. The party favors are in the trunk.
Oh, I'm playing as Alex Mason from Black Ops? Okay, let's see where this is going. After picking your death cock, I went with an MP5 of course, the gang make their way through the seedy streets to a nearby apartment block to do the clean house mission from Modern Warfare 19.
Go, go, go! Scene's headed up the stairs.
If it was set in a monster truck rally. Ending with our himbos cornering their quarrel for a quick chat, now with choosable dialogue options. Ooh, very BioWare. However, this isn't just flavor text, as the outcome of these convos shape the plot itself. And as you can tell, this isn't gunning for any of that authentic shit like in MW19. No, this is video gamey AF, and honestly a refreshing blast of Call of Duty silliness, with a welcome greasy 80s action thriller edge. And while it goes through the Rolodeck of worn COD and general media tropes, but what made this inoffensive nugget of schlock worthwhile to me was the characters surrounding you. In fact, I quite liked hanging out with them in the safe house, and just watching them go about their business, like murderous fish. And of course bothering MI6 agent Park, while secretly hoping there was a moment she had to step on me to reach something high up. Perhaps I should have cut this line from the script. Also, there are moments where you get to work out clues on where to go next by collecting intel out in the field, which is standard Call of Duty stuff, but here, these documents are actually used to work out puzzles, which is pretty cool, and kind of a bitch as well, because these ciphers are slightly randomized. So the only way to work them out is to use your own intuition, which basically means scribbling a shit on a piece of paper to work it all out. And I love it, that's cool. It makes you feel like a spy. And suffice to say, working out what the numbers mean, Mason, is a reward unto itself. It's a shame the story doesn't quite hold up. It's fine, it's not bad, but by the time the credits rolled on it, it just felt a bit blah. The gameplay is still satisfying in its dummy thickness, and the levels, especially the pyramid thing that houses a Russian training compound that is a full-blown replica of an American town, was a fun fuckabout, but the glue to put it all together just feels weak. So while it's not pushing the boat, and I will admit this is a huge improvement in quality for the Black Ops series, but yeah, for me it kind of sunk like a stone at the end. Oh well.
You take the lowercase mates, I'll take the upper ones. Don't forget the flare.
Let's move up! First Sarge. All right, boys, this is it! You're on me!
Tommy!
Try and get back! We need to clear the door! All right, lads! Up of you!
You know, I'm trying to find a really cool intro for this part, so it's Call of Duty Vanguard, kids. Yeah. Yeah, Sledgehammer is back to smash my back doors with some more Nazi murder. And after their 2017 depiction, you would have thought I would have been all over this one at launch. But no. This was the era of COD, where I gave up on all pretense and caring. And the one thing I saw about Vanguard that made me uncut my nuts and pay attention was Jonathan Ferguson, the keeper of Firearms and Artillery at the Royal Army's Museum in the UK, etc., cringing his balls off at the cursed guns in the multiplayer mode.
Alright, pause out of the gate with whatever this is. God, I think this is a Garand. What have they done to you?
Oh, your pain is our pain, Jono. However, after playing Vanguard for this video, I think there's a lot more going for it than at first glance, especially story-wise. Instead of the usual framing devices we normally get in this style of COD, Vanguard is going for a non-linear story, in a setting that usually covers the usual theatres of war in a more sterile way. And yes, the obvious Inglourious Basterds influence aside, what caught me was its dark comic booky feel. If you told me that this was originally a graphic novel by, say, Top Cow or Image, or as the latest spin-off in the Wolfenstein series, I probably would have believed you. In fact, my first experience with comics as a kid was the War Picture Library, which followed the Oxfordshire and Buckinghamshire Light Infantry on their escapades to push back the Bosch. And flicking through these frames for research, I could see a resemblance between this and what Vanguard is trying to do. Sure, the game itself is thematically darker than these cells, but that pulpy spirit is still there. Also, this is how you sell propaganda to kids, America. Get your gamer subs drinking goons out of my face. And this pulpy premise is apparent from the off, with our crew, the Task Force Vanguard, sneaking their way through a Nazi train to Hamburg to sniff for intel on Project Phoenix, a secret SS MacGuffin fronted by this gone-off bag of bratwurst called Freisinger. And as you can probably guess, stuff happens and our heroes are captured and carted off to Berlin for a spot of torture and biscuits. And from this point onward, the story flips between each member like a superhero randomizer. And I have to say, these characters are so damn enthralling. And I love how you take your time to get to know them, without it bogging down the gameplay. It's a level of investment I haven't seen in Call of Duty since Reznov in World of War. But instead of learning about someone passively, who is guiding you along this adventure, we are seeing their experiences through their eyes. While this framing device seems alien for most average Call of Duty campaigns, actually this is what most of them do. They just don't call it out in such a way, in this paranoia that it might break the so-called immersion, and maybe you twig that most of the protags you do inhabit are murderous bellends with the charm of an AI chatbot. But what I found fascinating was the fact these characters are based on real soldiers. Once again, this is nothing new in this series, but the way they deep cut these pics made me go down another rabbit hole, and now I get to bore you to death with another list. Sorry. I've been in the booth for too long. Wade Jackson, who is a Sky-based Nathan Drake, is inspired by Navy Captain Vernon Michel, who bombed 2 Japanese aircraft carriers during the Battle of Midway. Lucas Riggs, a Foster's drinking demolition who in my headcanon shouts Frank at his pet snake when he's back in his native Australia, he is based on Charles Upham, one of the most decorated soldiers of the Second World War. Also, he's a proud Kiwi. Oh crikey. Next we have Richard Webb, aka the bloke who dies for dramatic effect. Oh come on, it's a Call of Duty game, someone has to die to raise the stakes. That's the way it is. Anyway, he's inspired by Terence Otway, the commanding officer of the British paratroopers who headed the assault on D-Day. So yeah, in hindsight, he got done dirty here. Next we have the leader of the group, Arthur Kingsley, who is based on Sidney Cornell, the first black paratrooper to land on Normandy, and was later involved in the Battle of the Bulge and Operation Varsity. And he can battle my bulge any day. And lastly, and my favourite, Polina Petrova, who might be the most interesting one of the bunch, due to being modelled after, and I'm trying here, Lyudmila Pavlichenko, but you may know her by another name, Lady Death, one of the most deadliest snipers to have ever lived. And learning about her and her passion for killing fascists just makes me love her even more. And later on, she became a public speaker. Oh, and Eleanor Roosevelt's BFF. Sometimes real life is madder than fiction. Anyway, the point of this rundown is to highlight that this is quite a diverse bunch of characters, and I appreciate that Vanguard is trying to give this world and the people within it some much needed texture and depth. And yes, this aspect really rocked my cock off. So, what if I told you that apparently this was the worst Call of Duty game of all time? Yeah. During my deep dive on the common consensus towards Vanguard, on its face, everything seems to be fine, with many prominent news outlets giving it average to good scores, with the loudest smattering of complaints I found from players was the game wasn't historically accurate. And after looking at footage from the multiplayer mode, where you can run around with laser guns in a World War II game, yeah, this does come off as a tad desperate. But let's be honest with ourselves here. Since when has COD ever been historically accurate? Even in the supposed times when the franchise got quotes real, there was always a layer of artifice to it, and I think our lads from earlier were more than happy to make this point clear. But in respect to Vanguard, this is supposed to be a comic booky game. So while it has the framing of World War II, the story inside of it doesn't reflect anything of historical accuracy. And I think you can tell that this critique is not holding much water. And this is all bollocks anyway, because the real reason why all the supposed homies hated Vanguard was this.
We came into this process saying, how do we make the iconic COD characters? Because you don't really have that in Call of Duty right now. You know, when you think about a game like, I don't know, Halo, you think of Master Chief or whatever. But when you think of COD, there isn't really that standout, like, oh, these characters. And so we came into this being like, who could be our sort of like flagship COD characters? Because we want to make Vanguard 2 and Vanguard 3, because we have 2 more stories that we really want to tell with these characters. So we are hoping that if people love them as much as we do, that we get to continue to tell the story of these people and make them sort of like figureheads for this era of COD, basically.
And yes, you could argue that the writer of Vanguard's view on a lack of iconic characters in Call of Duty is short-sighted. But as a throwaway comment said during a panel where people casually talk about shit for hours, this is pretty mundane. But as a woman working in this industry who made this comment and who has been very opinionated about representation in this space outside of this clip, you can guess what happened next. Especially when supposed prominent men on YouTube who happen to review mainstream media and also have a certain bias towards anyone that isn't a white guy making shit, they made our writer, who I won't name to annoy the handful of knobheads who are currently hate watching this shit, the centerpiece of why the so-called quality of Vanguard is poor. And originally I was going to review the reviewer here, but what they actually say and do while pushing their greasy undercurrent of sexism is mostly padding for runtime, with skits that might be called humorous if you had no concept on comedy. Actually, most of them come off as a desperate attempt to distance themselves from the fact that just like this series, their own creative endeavours have gone beyond diminishing returns. Or you're the act man, who away from this game has the mental capacity of a spoon, just full on name dropped our subject, with a sick zoom. Very subtle, mate. And all this stirring of the chuds made this private citizen, who was happy to stay in her lane, into a parasocial hate figure. And yeah, this has nothing to do with Vanguard, but you know grifters, they gotta get that alt-right culture war cheddar somehow. Yeah, I don't agree with these so-called opinions. The fact that most of the toxic critiques leveraged at this game are towards the people over its content is just sad. Yeah, I will admit, it's not the best game ever, and all its establishment in terms of plot ends in a rush payoff, but there is a ton of stuff going for it that makes it worthwhile. Yeah, it may not be as complex or flashy, but what it is a fun popcorn action romp to blast through on a Sunday afternoon, with hopefully a small crack in a window for further expansion. I doubt we'll see those sequels, but this pansexual spod can dream. Life's all pain. Pain, rejection, and gloom. Why do we even pretend there's anything but a yawning blankness at the heart of... Oh, hey. It's the sequel to Modern Warfare. Yes, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2-2. Released in 2022. I'm so tired. And that is my general view on MW2 22, Manchester United 0. And while it's a follow-up to one of the best games of this franchise, this isn't a follow-up that merits any kind of mention. Okay, I'm being harsh. As a campaign, it certainly puts you through the ringer in terms of set pieces, and so on, but holy fuck, talk about a game going through the bloody motions. And I'm kind of dumbstruck. How can Infinity Ward go from trying to grab you by the neck and force you to contend with your actions, to becoming a dumb parody of itself? Granted, I should have seen the warning signs, because the only thing I knew about this game before playing it was this ridiculous image of returning character Ghost, who looks like he was dragged through a COD merchandise stand backwards, then forwards, then backwards, then forwards, then backwards again. Yeah, they basically dumbed down the game, which worked for Black Ops 2, as that was a massive love letter to cheesy action schlock, but for this, it feels like a cop-out. And I know I went in on the political stuff in MW19, but these moments, while crass, gave the story a grounded punch that the previous CODs lacked. Oh sure, there's still plenty of contentious moments here to piss off the Conservatives and your mum, but the former use these elements to make you feel something, other than a big guy with a gun. And sure, the original Modern Warfare 2 was a balls-to-the-wall cockfest masquerading as a sneaky advertisement for Remington Firearms, but at least it was consistently silly. And I think my biggest gripe away from all the gaudiness is the sheer amount of series baggage, which wasn't present in 19, is now come back with a vengeance, like General Shepard here, which you know is going to cock you over in the third act and, oh, actually no, he bends you over the table by Act 2, with his new PMC bitch boy, with the charisma of a cup of warm piss. And away from my snarks, this to me just screams of Infinity Ward emptying their rhyme book back in 2019 and now is scrambling to come up with stuff to fill this void. And I don't know that for certain, but comparing the time where you play as a child surviving a military occupation to then shooting armoured fucks over and over again, and yeah, my disappointment is immeasurable. And my day is ruined. Okay, it's not, I just wanted to say that. But the thing is, MW2 2022, all caps by MF Doom, isn't terrible. No, not at all. It's just bland. And for me, bland is more irksome, as it's competent, but it doesn't drum up any worthwhile commentary. Huh, just like an Angry Joe video. And okay, I kinda digged the flirtations with open map design, but on further research, it just seems that they're reusing assets from Warzone, which just like Blackout I played once and wonder why I bothered, but it made the mission where you infiltrate a facility via ghillie suits far more interesting, and I'll let you write the all gullied up joke here, and the mission alone, where Soap is outnumbered and outgunned by Shepard's private military goofs, had some survival spice. In fact, I like the improv nature of the entire gameplay here, until the armoured fucks return and... why? You know this shit is cheap, Infinity Ward. Whatever. Bottom line, it's Call of Duty another one. While it's not boring, I was looking forward to finishing it, and moving on to whatever Treyarch or Sledgehammer was making next. And yeah, I should have been more careful in what I wish for. Yep, the following year we got Modern Warfare 3, and just like the other 3s in Call of Duty, they should stop counting. Also, in a weird piece of recurring history, Sledgehammer Games was tasked to make this revision, like they did when they made the original Modern Warfare 3, and from what I can gather, all was not well during production. Actually, Call of Duty in 2023 was going to take the year off, to regroup after Vanguard and Modern Warfare 2 underperformed, with the focus of yearly installments moving over to Warzone, which was popping off at the time, for some reason. But then, in February of 2023, Activision kicked down the door and threatened us with a proper entry, much to the chagrin of Sledgehammer, which at the time was making an expansion pack for Modern Warfare 2, after dropping plans for a sequel to Advanced Warfare. I mean, how are you going to write around that particular monster? So, deep into the production of the DLC, their overlords pivoted Sledgehammer into making the next installment of the Modern Warfare trilogy, in half the time the other studios were used to. And I just find this fucking frustrating, that the developer that has been cranking out some impressive nuggets of COD has to come full circle in this way, and that's sad. And while we had shades of Warzone asset reuse in the last game, this one is basically single player Warzone, and to be fair, pissing us about the drama aside, I actually quite like this. Most of the crap I just slung at you about all the production woes and shit, I didn't know while playing this game. And yeah, with this context, you can see how rushed it all is. But there is some quality here, like Makarov, who is still an afterthought in this story, but the brief snippets we do get are quite imposing. And there was a couple of times where MW3 pulled the rug on me, such as the first mission, where you play as a nameless spook who with his balaclavaed mates sneak into a prison. But during this heist, you find out the VIP you're busting out is Makarov. Yes, you were playing as the baddies. And that was a cool bait and switch. It completely subverted my expectations without spunking the fun of the reveal, which I just spoiled. My bad. And then we are back in Urixstan with Farah, and I was so happy as she was the shining star of MW19, by far. That was sadly pushed off Mount Shepherd and hit every bland boulder on the way down. Also, we find out that Farah is gay. And right on, and I would elaborate, but sadly her squeeze has a new hole to eat yogurt from, because there was no other way to insert meaningful slices of drama into this fucking game. But she has no time to mourn, as Farah has to do her mission and defend herself against the Coney, which to save you some brain ram is Makarov's army. Why am I mentioning this? Well, because the story loves saying this name, but doesn't give you any context. Yeah, it's a bit confusing. Did I mention this was made in 16 months? But like I said earlier, once you get past all of that, the gameplay is a ton of fun. It's got that open world fucking about in say the later Far Cry games, or Just Cause. That silly, explosive, just ridiculousness, where you just run around and watch shit blow up. And yeah, it's basically just Warzone with bots, but for me this really got me. If you're going to lean on the power fantasy aspect again in Call of Duty, then just go dumb, and Modern Warfare 3 23 has that in spades. Yeah, it's an insult to what Modern Warfare 19 started, but honestly, after I embraced the trash, I fell in love with this. Sure, the story is complete crap, and if it was marketed as a side thing rather than a full game, then I don't think it would have gotten such a harsh reception, but honestly, deep down, I have a soft spot for this kind of shite. And this is a snack and a half. And if you can pick up a cheap copy, which you can because most Call of Duty secondhand are worthless, I urge you to give this a go. And honestly, it's a testament to Sledgehammer that even with crap, they can forge diamonds. Apart from Glenn Schofield, of course. Okay, I'm going to say this with all due respect. How the balls are we at the 6th game in the Black Ops series? And outbursts aside, I'm not mad, I'm just... why? We have dined on this succulent Cold War meal for nearly 15 years now, especially as the USP for Blob 6 is just the decade it's set, the 90s. And that's it. I mean, what's next? Is Black Ops 7 going to be set in the 2000s, where Fred Durst is exposed as a Russian double agent? Huh. So it's set in the future, starring David Mason. It looks like it's going back to the Black Ops 3 shit, again, with all the mind-bending guff. Oh, they traded Avenged Sevenfold for Metallica. Yeah, that's cool. Nah, I'm good, thanks. And if this video comes out after Black Ops 7, and you still want my views on it, well, wait another 20 odd years and I'll tell you. If the mole people haven't taken over by then. And with my petulant rant in the bin, at least this one has the balls to go to an actual war-torn country, with the opening act and a fair chunk of this story taking place during Operation Desert Storm. Alright, I've got nothing. I just don't care. This level was cool, but I'm so done with Call of Duty. And just as I'm running out of shit to say, look who rolls in on his chariot. It's... the greatest gamer of all time, Frankie Woods. Alright, lucky for us, he hasn't gone full gonzo mode here, and talks like a normal prick, rather than a right-wing Twitch streamer complaining that his beloved pop culture fixation has been invaded by the filthy left. And while I'm on this train of non-sequiturs, because I've completely given up pretense at this point, allow me to unload my remaining ammo towards Black Ops 6. Adler's face looks like my asshole after an accident with a nail gun. Being able to sprint in all 8 directions sounds neat, but gave me the mental image of an office chair with murderous intent. The password system to open doors, while unique at first, quickly became a battle of attrition, like trying to crack your dad's briefcase full of muck rags, to find it's nothing but crusty copies of Top Gear magazine. And you do not want to know what he did to the Clarkson 2-page spread. Zev, the sassy assassin, could, while I hang from the ceiling with a tennis ball while singing Du Hast by Rammstein. Honestly, are these moments of Simperi funny yet? And the mission in the underground base in Kentucky is worth a play on its own, for its creepy atmosphere and wacky plot, which is the second instance where zombies are used in COD and it doesn't feel like desperation. Yeah, I have no jokes here, just shut up and play it. But if you want blood, we have the Call of Duty app. That is supposed to be the optimal way to deliver contemporary COD content to the masses. Yeah, bollocks to the art and all the pretentious prattling about, I don't know, politics and other piffy shit. We got stuff for sale, like skins for your characters, which you can't see because it's a first-person game, so who the fuck cares? This also puts all your Call of Duty games from Modern Warfare 2 onwards in a convenient little hovel. And perhaps on console this is nice, but on PC, especially on the Xbox app, all it does is shut the app down and then opens the game up in a separate window, when you could have just avoided all this shit and just clicked on the game itself. Yes, I just love my content being delivered in such a contrived way. And that's how I feel about Black Ops 6. It's okay. And for a few bright spots, it slaps pretty damn hard. But to me, it's just another thing I experienced between the cradle and grave. Okay, you know that thing I said about Modern Warfare 19? Yeah, I think it's time we pulled that pin. Alright, first things first, was it hyperbolic to say that Modern Warfare 2019 killed the franchise? Yes, because it's still going. And will keep on going, and going, and going, and going, and going, and going, yeah, you get the idea. But the reason why I came to that assumption is due to seeing this kind of phenomena before. It's something I like to call the Resident Evil 4 effect, and I know it's quite gauche for someone who is apparently a horror YouTuber to talk about Resident Evil 4 in every fucking video, but for this one, it is kind of fitting. But not only because Resident Evil has gone longer than Call of Duty with more games, but Resident Evil 4 in particular kind of derailed the franchise for a while. It was so good, so influential, and so groundbreaking. Everything post that game, inside and outside of that franchise and genre, was compared to it. So when it comes to the people who are actually making these games, anything they put out post that is going to be compared to Resident Evil 4, which kind of fucked it up for a while because, yeah, Resident Evil 5 and 6 and so on were fine. But it wasn't Resident Evil 4. That's what the fans wanted. That's what the critics wanted. But no one asked about the creators. And I imagine from their point of view, this is depressing. Because what does a creator want to do? They want to create, right? They want to be free to express themselves in any way possible. And yeah, we're talking about AAA games here, but still, art is art. Like, for a medium that is absolutely focused on the next thing, the next big technology push, the next graphical thing, whatever, we are hard-coded to just play the same thing over and over again. That's why I have such a iffy relationship with remakes and remasters. Yes, some games do deserve a second chance, but quite a lot of these don't get that. They just wallow. But when it comes to Call of Duty, it has been graced with multiple of these that all set a high watermark for the entire series. And yeah, in their time, they were massive smashes, both financially and critically. But the problem is that this series is quite limited. You're getting the same thing over and over again. So there's also that level of diminishing returns, of stagnation. So say past Modern Warfare 2 and 3, when this series was at its peak, the crash of the 2010s really sunk in. So by the time Modern Warfare 2019 came out, it was a huge smash because it was actually a game wanting to be made, rather than just a yearly obligation. And while the series is still a huge part of our ecosystem, the bloom has fallen off the rose. And I think that's where we're at right now. Like, searching on Google or YouTube, you will find a ton of people just fatigued by this series, and they cite Modern Warfare 19 as its cultural peak. And that's no accident, because the game is good. However, it's the best one in a sea of mediocrity. And that's not a diss Infinity Ward. They did everything they could. They put out all the stops to make something memorable. And they did. They achieved that. But also they made such a high watermark, every game post that was going to be compared to it. Once again, the Resident Evil 4 effect. And while Call of Duty continues to sell decently, it's starting to level off. And I think we're all starting to feel that tiredness. Like, we've had 21 games in just over 20 years. And it doesn't matter who you are, or how casual or full on you play video games, that's a lot of Call of Duty. And fine, playing 21 games in a row will burn anyone out. And trust me, I'm feeling it right now. But then I looked at the horizon with all the other people complaining about it, and I agree. Something has to give. And I don't know if it's us or them, because Activision has now been bought out by Microsoft, who wants to turn this medium and everything involved in it into fodder for Game Pass. They don't want video games, they want content. And personally, fuck content. Hello everyone, my name is Scott, and I just wanted to show you some footage of this match I had on Call of Duty Black Ops 4, playing some Kill Confirmed, and talk about content creation, and just my general views on these types of videos, and, well, let's get into it. This move in the last decade or two, from art to making shit that panders the attention economy, isn't for me. And personally, as a supposed content creator, which is a name that I've never identified myself as, and being called that just feels weird, especially after spending nearly 6 months of my life working on this one video. Spending I don't know how many hours writing, editing, second guessing myself that I suck and I shouldn't have bothered because no one's going to watch this shit. Whittling away my mental health trying to fine tune every single detail because I was paranoid that I may be misread. Annoying people around me to read this bit, watch that clip, in a panic that it was not good, and so on. Oh, that was a nice kill. All in this vain hope that trying to squeeze myself into this content mindset would actually make my channel and myself worthwhile. And that's when I finally snapped and said, fuck it. I am not a content creator. While it's great for the nebulous numbers to talk about what's popular and trending, or reacting to stuff that people will forget as soon as they click away, making conventional content brings me no joy. And this mindset of chasing shit that will be obsolete once it hits the SEO toilet pan is a folly. You know what? It's funny. For the longest time, I've been stuck in a rut, and it gnawed at me that my most successful videos were ones I made years ago. But for some reason, instead of not giving a fuck about anything but my own feelings towards the subject, like I did when I made those videos, I kept trying to recreate them. Or I would dial up my humour to ridiculous degrees, or make some contentious shit like I did in the Conduit video when I said about Crisis. And I know most of this shit is going to be flying over most of your heads, and that's fine, skip to the next chapter. It's like I was addicted to the fear of losing my tiny audience that I built up over the last, I don't know, 12 years. So in my head I was churning stuff out in spite of this anxiety that I had with each one, where it felt like I was failing, and the more I tried, the more this feeling of ennui started to grow. Was this irrational? Yes. But this feedback loop of trying my best to be a content creator made me fucking miserable. All because I forgot the thrill of making stuff over all the bullshit. I was tainted by the anticipation of maybe doing this or that would get me here, rather than just doing what I know I can do. This site alone has 20 million uploads per day. Per fucking day. So while it feels nihilistic to give up and just do what I normally do, it's actually freeing because I don't have to worry about anyone else. I can just make the videos I want to do in the way I want them to be. And that feels very liberating. And the term content creator just feels soulless. And in my head is only used by corpo fucks to push whatever shit they're trying to peddle into your ears. And this is why for years I classed myself as a video twat. Mostly as a joke, but also I did not feel like I fit in the usual YouTubery Mr. Beast bullshit way. And I kind of like just being my own island. So yeah, while I might be embarrassed of some of my later videos where I try to dial up all the stupidity and the stupid sound effects, for this one I thought, fuck it. I'm gonna let it all out. I'm gonna lay it on the table. This is me. Unfiltered. Edited, of course, because you don't want to fucking hear me rambling for hours on end. Or maybe you do because you're watching this. So here you go. Now you have something from me that's from a space of just making what I want. And win, lose or draw, I feel good. And while you may feel this is pretentious to tack on right here, I don't care. I'm doing this for me. And if you vibe with that, then cool. Oh, fucking hell. So yeah, that was my Call of Duty midlife crisis. While it had its ups and downs, there is just something about the series I find captivating. From its politics to how it shaped video games as a whole, Call of Duty sparks conversation. It is truly a water cooler game. And away from all that static, there are some bangers to play. My own isms aside, I relish finishing work for the day or whatever I was doing to sit down and blast through one of these adventures. And sure, not all of them are great, but over time I grew an appreciation for this series, and for the people who strive to make it a juggernaut. Granted, the arrogant notion of Call of Duty being too big to fail is definitely not the case, especially as the industry right now is shrinking due to geo-economic and political fuckery, but for a series that spawned this internal caustic view of the genre and the fans of it, and my own personal struggles with its iffy stances, I will admit, I was wrong. If you're looking for some explosive irreverence, you can't go wrong with a bit of COD. And also in spots, it made me quite nostalgic. And while I hate that feeling, because that leads down to a sticky, Funko-popped rabbit hole, for what it was, I had fun yelling about my old mate COD. And that opening pang of shame quickly melted away, to reveal a series, while maddening in many aspects, just does something for me. And even in its grimiest moments, I was having a blast. And if you get anything from this, please, for the love of space Jon Snow, play Infinite Warfare. Just do it. Do it for me. I would like to thank you for watching this, and if you want to support future Bum Blasts, you can follow me on Patreon. There is only one tier, which is $1, as I don't want to promise you a ton of stuff, as it's hard enough to keep my plate spinning already, but now I do want to lean into it some more, and let you in on my process behind the scenes, and hopefully from time to time do live streams or Q&As. If you don't want to toss me a grope, that's fine, and if you made it to this point, thank you for white knuckling through it. And if you could do the usual YouTube stuff, yeah, I know I'm not a content creator, but a like and a share to me is more than anything in the world. And that's all I have to say about Call of Duty. Now go away.
Jesus!